I'm going live. Right. Well, we are live, but I don't see my video. So give me 1 second. Right. Well, we are live, but I don't see my video. So give me 1 second. All right. Good day. Good day. Good day. Good day. I know that I am super early for our normal Evolve Weekly and our 9th session for the 52-week series on how to implement a more perfect you. Give me a second to mute my other video, which is going full screen here. All right, I got that muted. I see you, you see me. If you can join me, please do. If you cannot join me today because of my time change, then I sincerely apologize in advance, if you will, even though this isn't advance notice. I apologize today. I am actually not feeling all that great, hence my casual attire. And I really just want to rest today. And so I'm hoping that you will give me a little bit of grace on this day and you will allow that for me, that you won't take to Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and be like, how dare she go on at 4 o'clock? How dare she try to have any type of control over her own platform? Okay, so humor aside, and please understand this as well, because this is necessary for us all to do. I am a professional. I am, because we have to be very mindful of expressing toxic tropes, toxic stereotypes upon especially Black women or any men. The stereotype of the strong Black woman is that, you know, oh, she can handle it anyway. You know, look at her. She's doing this and doing that. That does not mean I don't need rest. I make sure to be very transparent with everyone as the human that I am, not to the point of unjustifiable excuses, but to the effect of ensuring and preserving my physical health, my mental health, emotional health, which can be, you know, one and the same, but it's, you know, it's important to distinguish from those others. And sometimes it's necessary to just say, today, yes, I committed to something. And especially if it's not going to mean, you know, if it's not going to be to someone else's detriment, right? You know, I believe very strongly in that. So it may pose an inconvenience, and I do professionally and personally apologize for this inconvenience, but I do not apologize in the regard that someone would assert that it caused a detriment. So there should be no detriment here because this video will be posted. You will have access to it at 4 o'clock. You will have access to it before 4 o'clock, in fact. So it may serve as more convenient for others. And I can't be convenient and effective and productive for you if I'm not feeling well. So yeah, and I want to rest. That's it. I don't want, I want to rest consistently today. All right. And it doesn't mean that Sunday is not a good day. This is perfectly fine. So don't take that out of context. Don't unsubscribe. None of those things are the case. It's just the fact that I just want to have a full, fluid amount of time to just rest. and not have to worry about getting back up and, preparing myself for a 4 o'clock session, if you will. Okay, so we're going to jump right in, and we're going to go to New York today. All right. And again, no toxic behavior. So I appreciate in advance any of you saying, well, I hope you feel better. No, it's not COVID. I'm a scientist. I jokingly have stated that if it's COVID, if it's a matter of COVID-19, and because your girl is a scientist, on topic with viruses and bacteria and pathogens, okay, you're gonna have to give it to me. And because I am physically trained, yeah, it's gonna be a process. So you might not be successful in that process. If you are successful in that process, it's very likely, you've heard the colloquialism, that I may not win that fight, but there will be marks. There will be marks to signify that I was there. Oh yeah. So no, that's not the case. That's going to be a wonderful segue though, because before we step right into New York, we have to do the affirmation. And I also wanted to speak very quickly on the viruses, motility and sessility. And I've done this prior. I want to say I have 3 videos on vaccines. And I wanted to go into further detail. I wanted to show you pictures because I know that some of us, we understand and appreciate that a lot better, right? We process that so much easier and we can retain that information. And then I also wanted to just show you that you can look it up, just in case it got lost in translation, that you were like, well, I don't know how to spell that word. And remember, I'm not here to insult anybody's intelligence, so it doesn't matter, okay? What's truly intelligent is your willingness to grow your body of knowledge, because there can be an intelligent person who displays consistent, persistent, unceasing ignorance when they refuse to grow their body of knowledge, when they refuse to accept new discoveries, new information, right? Okay, so we're going to go and pull up some images of motility as opposed to sessility, okay? And the virus and the bacteria conspiracy theory. It's going to take 2 seconds. I'm telling you, it's going to be quick. And then I wanted to drop in a little bit of statutory law. This is the reason why I chose New York next. New York is a tenant-favored state. I believe it still is. We're going to find out today because there could be new information that even I'm not aware of. But we're going to find out today. But prior to this year, to the best of my knowledge, New York is a tenant-favored state. North Carolina, however, is a landlord-favored state. Okay? All right. So I'm going to provide to you information that is relevant to how we implement a more perfect union. When we have our concerns about the minimum wage and we have our concerns about retaliatory acts by landlords, and in retaliation against the COVID relief bill or the $15 minimum wage, this is where this would come into play, and you'll see why. So let's start with our affirmation, and let me let you know who I am. For those of you who are joining me brand new, my name is Tigress Sydney Acute McDaniel. I am your host for Evolve Weekly. We are right now in the thick of a 52-week series on how to implement a more perfect union. All right? Okay, this is not the Tigress show. It's not. It's not. I want you to interact with me. Now, admittedly, I sound kind of cuckoo saying that when I came live earlier than I was supposed to, earlier than I told you on today. So today is an exception to the rule. But I intend for this to be hyper interactive. I intend for you to have a space to provide your comments, your input, your questions. I want dialogue. I need your input and participation because I cannot affect a more perfect union by myself. It sounds ideal because, you know, a lot of people, you know, have, and, you know, like I told you before, the community has deemed me, nicknamed me Queen Get Her Done. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But I understand reality. And realistically, I just can't affect a more perfect union alone. The president can't affect legislative reform alone. I may be able to inspire, and there may be a pioneer aspect to that inspiration. But at the end of the day, I can't affect, I can't bring about into fruition a more perfect union by myself. I need you and you and you, yeah, you and you, absolutely, and you too. I need you all in the room, ready to go, having drunk your water and had something nutritious to eat. And we need to do this together. All right, so we're going to, like I said, we're going to go over to New York. But before we go over to New York, we are going to take a look at motility and Sessility. Okay, motility, motion. Okay, think of motion or locomotion, how an organism moves. Very simple. Sessility being the opposite, void of locomotion. Okay, right. Types of motility include cilia, cytoplasmic, almost like inertia movement, if you will. You know, just the way that my hands are moving. I'm going to show you a depiction of that as well. And very commonly flagellum, right? There's, or flagella, right? Okay, so cilia is much like hair. Flagella is much like a spirally tail that kind of whips its way, propels, you know, the organism, okay? And there are many other types of motility, but those are most commonly known and most commonly understood, okay? Just generally, not amongst scientists, but just generally in the whole population, okay? We can generally wrap our minds around the concepts of those types of mechanisms of motion, okay? And Sessility, with that being the absence of it, I made a comparison to quickly fact checked the conspiracy as it relates to bacteria and viruses. Specifically, the conspiracy theory was that COVID-19 was a bacteria instead of a virus, and that the government was misleading us about that fact. Okay. So the quick answer to this, and quick and short answer to this is, and it's I'm stumbling because you have to understand my specialization, my expertise. And for those of you who are not aware, so very quickly, my bachelor's is in science, my master's is in science, and I am currently a PhD candidate in science. My specialization is wetland, bio, and phytoremediation, okay? Phyto being plant, bio being life. Okay, in a wetland, there are three main aspects to that wetland. Water, hence wet land, okay? And it's not always wet throughout the entire year. Hydrophytes, which are plants that love water, that thrive either in ecosystems that are inundated, so they can thrive under or submerged in water, or they can thrive in environments that have high water levels at some point throughout any given season or any given year, right? Okay. And then thirdly is the what? Now, there are technically four, but I'll tell you the fourth and you'll understand why. And arguably the fourth is a combination of the two, even though, again, the wetland in and of itself is this wonderful conglomeration of all of those beautiful things. So thirdly is the bio, the life, the microorganisms, the not so microorganisms that live in these wetlands. Okay, so the fourth would be the soil. And I know some of you like to refer to it as dirt. It's not. You will offend us scientists because it's not dirt. Soil, there is the difference between, soil and dirt. Soil has life. Root system, rhizosphere, it has life, okay? And that's why I was saying that effectually the soil is a combination of the life and the plants, if you will, okay? And then of course, since it's inundated in water generally, then boom, boom, boom. So a wetland is a very wonderful, wonderful, wonderful ecosystem. It's the most powerful ecosystem on our planet, in fact, okay? So with that being said, I quickly was at the ready to chime in and say, hold on, wait, no. Hey, no. It can't be a bacteria, friends, because that means it has motility. We don't want it to have motility. Lingering in the atmosphere, in water droplets from our saliva that has been ejected from our mouths as we spit and talk and yell and whatever we're doing. And it can be happy yelling, it doesn't have to be some angry thing. That's one thing. And we are so fortunate that it is not capable of motion like that. Locomotion, okay? Because bacteria, and then the other issue that I mentioned to you is that bacteria is intuitive. It may not be cognitive, but it is intuitive. And so that means when it sets out to do a thing, it's intentionally doing a thing, or at least autonomously doing a thing. And yes, the virus does as well, and there have been arguments in that regard. But again, the biggest difference, distinction that you all should be happy, that should set your minds completely at peace as it relates to this conspiracy theory, is the express fact that this virus and other viruses have no known locomotion. That's why you hear me say, and that's why, even though they haven't explained it to you, I like to explain it to my son this way. We wash the microscopic dinosaurs away. Nobody wants a velociraptor, and I don't even know if I said that right. Y'all tell me. Nobody wants a raptor or a T-Rex on their hands, right? And water is a wonderful, wonderful element. And that, and it can wash away surface matter, if you will. And viruses can qualify as that surface matter that is on the surface of your hands, right? Okay. And because it has no motility, it's not going to jump back from the water in the sink where you're washing your hands back onto your hands. Some of you have this idea that yes, viruses are definitely in the atmosphere, and you very likely come in contact with the COVID virus. So have I. But this is why the measures, the safety measures are just so important. If you do not wash your hands and wash away those dinosaurs, those mini dinosaurs, microscopic dinosaurs, then they stick with you because they also don't have the motility to leave. You get it? Okay, so let's look at motility really quickly. And if they're otherwise on you, quote unquote, and of course they're microscopic, they're just infinitesimally microscopic, then you're not going to be able to really see them and say, okay, well, I've got a patch of them right here and I've got a patch of them right here, right? No, you're not going to be able to do that. So that's why when you come into your home after you've been in an area where there's a lot of public traffic, you take off the clothes that you've had on in that area. You immediately launder them. If you do not have a washing machine, spray them down with alcohol and a tea tree oil or any of those components that repel viruses. You can quickly do a Google search, and you can find them on holistic websites. Generally, you can find them on WebMD. They have the same list of essential oils, and you don't have to feel like you're having to use essential oils that you really have no knowledge of how to properly use. Very simple concoction, 20 droplets of tea tree oil. Get it from a Whole Food or a natural health store that has some type of certification on it, certification that you know to be, it doesn't necessarily need to be organic. I've told you that before, that organic can sometimes just mean I want more money from you. But if it is a certified, if it is a certification from a company like maybe B Corporation or another corporation that really does have a great reputation of verifying the organic aspects of a product, then sure, go with that. Then you put that in your hydrogen peroxide. You can look up how wonderful that is, and boom, spray down your garments, take them off. These are the things, this is why I keep saying it's more commonsensical than you can ever imagine. It really is not high level in this lecture with all of us, academic scientists sitting around having this conversation. The finding a vaccine, and ultimately the ultimate goal is a cure, but right now there is no research, no findings that provides for the full eradication of viruses or even the full killing or termination. All we have, so when you hear people say kill viruses, it's inaccurate and it can be misleading, especially if you don't have an understanding. But they use those terms so that you at least, because that's what's generally understood by the public. You don't kill viruses, you stabilize them, you inactivate them, right? And again, this is why the conspiracy theory is so flawed, because they don't have motility. So if they're inactivated, if they're stabilized, they're not jumping off of your clothes now back onto you as you're sitting in your home now, and maybe you put your virus exposed clothes into maybe your laundry basket, and you're sitting on your couch, and it's not going to take a hike over to you on the couch and say, hey, I'm here. It won't do that. Okay, so let's pull this up really quickly. Oh boy. Ooh. And then we'll do the New York, and then we'll go to identify their where are we at? Yeah, let's see where we're at. Right there. Okay. Wait, that didn't do it. Oh, yes, it did. Okay, here we go. All right, motility. We already know the definition, so types of. Okay, let's go to pictures. And actually, let's do bacterial motility, because motility is, a catch-all term referring to just motion in general. So bacterial motility. Okay. Let's see. Okay. And I don't want to pull anything that is too much, but yeah, that's not so much. So this is an example of flagella in bacterium. And you'll notice that it can be one or more of the strands, if you will, of flagella or flagellum. And it moves exactly the way I was explaining to you. Then you have cilia, which is more hair-like and less of a tail. This is a great image. You see the cilia here on the outside. Follow my arrow. Okay. And the bacteria. Oh, that was a great example too. That gives you a great look at it as well. The crown on, I know some of you may say, well, what about the crown? The crown does not qualify as cilia or flagellum because it doesn't actually move the virus along. The crown is, the spikes rather, are specific to the code, the genetic code in the virus that needs to fill around for what it wants to link onto and then deliver its message. Got it? All right, message of destruction. All right, so then we have, that's another great look at cilia as well, just hair-like, if you will, okay? And then lastly, just so you have, the general understanding, cytoplasmic, like that of an amoeba, okay? Much like a slug. I should have thought about that initially. A slug is a great example of cytoplasmic locomotion. You know how you see them just kind of slither forward and then pull the rest of their body and then slither forward and pull the, now, mind you, let me be very, very mindful as well. I do not study the slug. And I know that may sound like, well, Tigress, that makes no sense. Who really cares? You have all this knowledge, it's sufficient. No. I do want to be respectful of the scientists for which this is their expertise. So I'm just talking generally because the movement of a slug may be a lot more intricate than that and may be different in some aspects than that of an amoeba. But I just wanted to make that connection just so you have a mental illustration of what that movement kind of looks like, okay? And they have some wonderful pictures of it. Hold on, cytoplasmic amoebic, cytoplasmic locomotion. All right, boom, here we go. The Yeezy is a really, I've seen some good ones. And it actually shows the, yeah, there we go. Okay. So it's reaching forward, then pulling the rest of its body forward, if you will, okay? There's another one, hold on. There we go, this is perfect. Perfect. All right, so you see this here? Step 2. And then step 3. And so you have this actin cytoskeleton and it's, it's just moving almost, like this, if you will. Okay, so now you have an understanding. Now that you have a visual and you have a better understanding of motility, Sessility, which is Sessility, is the exact opposite. It is the polar opposite of motility. So that means there's no motion. Viruses have sessility. They are sessile or sessile. Got it? Okay. So if that's the case, as opposed to a motile bacterium, that means, and so for some of you, also let me show you this as well, because some people don't know this, and because I love this. Even when I learn new words, you go to, I can't spell today, huh? Oh, we don't want to look for images, my bad. Go to the web. All right. And most of them now, and this is why I was telling you that it's very important for, if you don't get a big red dictionary like I was blessed with, then you can have this electronic dictionary at your convenience, and it's right here on the web. You can pull it up on your phone, and they give you sessile, just like I said, right? So you can look it up, Sessility, motile, all of these things. Anytime you hear a word, don't ever feel so intimidated to the point that you can't say, hold on one second, and go look it up. Look it up on your phone, even while they're talking, and then continue to engage the conversation. Do not ever be intimidated by etymology. That's what it's called, etymology. That's the study of language, study of words. Okay, all right. And actually it's the study of words, all right. So, okay, now let's go to New York Statutes. Okay, and if you're not really following along with how this platform is going, please please view the videos that precede this one, and then you'll have an understanding. So basically the structure is we go from state to state, handling all 52 states, hence the 52 weeks. And I may have to kind of, double up towards the end of the year based on any type of issues that arise that we need to discuss to make sure that we enlarge our body of thought. And I forgot our affirmation. Good gracious, let me do that before I continue. Affirmation is this, and it goes a little bit like this. May I further enlarge our collective and individual understanding of the subject matter that we handle, and not further cause divide. Simple. That's it. All right. Okay. So basically we go from state to state. We look at the composition of their legislature. Okay. That means we're looking for the culture, if you will, of their legislative branch. Is it more Democratic? Is the majority Democratic, or is the majority Republican? Now, what we also have are assumptions. We assume, and these assumptions are valid, so these are scientific assumptions or academic assumptions as opposed to colloquial ones. Colloquial assumptions say that we make an ass out of you and me when we assume. That's not how it works in academia. Academia, we have a body of accepted facts, and they are called assumptions. And we start from there so that we know that we're on the same page. So we assume, for the purpose of this series, that the Democratic representation is more closely consistent with the right side of justice than the Republican. We know that's not the case we know that there are one-off situations where that's not the case, but that's not what we're talking about. We have our general assumption. All right, so now we're going to go on over to New York, and then what else happens is that if there's any other issues that arise, as I've already mentioned, then I'll quickly handle those, and then I'll handle questions and all that kind of stuff, and there you have it. And then we move on to the next stage. The whole point here is first we have to identify a thing. You have to identify, and that's part of the scientific methodology. And I decided to employ what I know as my expertise to be highly effective in problem solving. Okay. So when you have with the scientific method, it starts off with identifying a problem. Because if you don't have a problem, what are you researching? What is the point? It can be exploratory, and that's what we're doing now. We have reason to believe we have a problem. And there have been studies that corroborate that we have a problem with our current Constitution as it is, and our current laws for the, laws of the land from state to state and federally prevailing, right? So my hypothesis has been, because the next step is to not only you identify the problem, then you say, well, okay, well, I know what I'm researching. I know what my problem is. What do I think is going to be the outcome? So that we understand what are we searching for? You don't want to just blindly try to address a problem. You need to understand what makes the problem a problem in the first place. And then you have to pose these questions that help you to really concisely identify exactly how the problem can possibly be fixed. And I say possibly because everyone who knows a scientist, you know that we are ever learning. And anybody that knows anything about the scientific method knows that it is a growing successive, environmentally or scientifically successive, not business succession. Business succession ends, right? Like a state, like winding up, like probate. Scientific succession, it continues to get better over time. You build on it with the new information that you have. Much like wisdom, as you get older and older, right? As you age, the goal is to become wiser than you were the year before, right? Okay, so my hypothesis is that we will have a culture of divide that persists to the detriment of American legislative reform. And so far, of all the states, we've had that. Because what I've noticed each time I run for an election since 2013, the votes are almost neck and neck for the primary seats, if you will. Because there's a whole, oh my gosh, we can, we're not even handling city and county right now. We're handling federal and state, because that's where the legislation really, the reform that we need, that's where it really happens, where you get the ratification of a constitutional amendment. It has to happen through Congress. It does not happen with the city mayor. So don't have that misconception. The city mayor can't help you with that. City council can't help you with that. They can be advocates, they can be proponents, they can even lobby, but where that happens is Congress. Okay, that's exclusive to Congress. All right. That being said, at that level, when we vote for presidents, when we vote for governors, when we vote for senators, and we vote for House of Representatives, look at the elections. Go back. I've shown you several. The votes are nearly neck and neck. Maybe there's a separation of 8,000 votes here. Maybe there's a separation of 1 million votes here. But when you're talking about, when you get in the millions and you're talking about what was the, I know I'm going to call it wrong, but it was 7 or 8 million votes difference between this last election, whereby we selected Joe Biden, right? So between Trump and Joe Biden was only 7 or 8 million votes. That is not significant. Yes, it's significant enough to win the election. Yes, that's beautiful, wonderful, all that kind of stuff. But 60% of Americans are generally on the right side of justice. And 40% of Americans thought that Trump was befitting. Those numbers are too close to show that we are all on the right side of justice. There's that shows big concern. And this is the reason why this research has been prompted, if you will. All right, so let's go on over to New York. And so far, as I've already alluded to, each state, neck and neck, with the exception of the last state that was, it appeared very unapologetically Republican. Okay, it was like 30 officials to 6 Democrats. So let's see. All right. And I've been showing you how easily you can access any of the statutes for any state. You don't have to live there. You don't have to sign in. You don't need to pay a fee to have access. None of those things exist. You just pull it up and it's readily available. Okay. All right. So you have the New York State Assembly, and then you'll understand why the tenant reference is important that I'm going to cite at the end, and then we'll close. Simple does it today. All right. Click on that. Now, each state's website, as we've noticed, is very different. Different in design, if you will, different in user friendliness. And so we are also making further inquiry into that, whether that is relevant to how voters engage elections. Okay. All right. All right. So this already makes me standoffish. I am very standoffish about this website already. I don't see, I mean, it's not visually appealing at all. We go back to the front page. It's terribly visually done. It may seem simple in one regard. I feel that if I weren't myself, if I didn't already have access, I feel like the general person would feel intimidated by this website. Like, okay, now I feel like I gotta know something. Like it's not giving me enough information for me to feel comfortable to just go from step to step, like some of the other websites that I've seen that have pictures and all that good stuff, right? So let's see. Senate agenda. I don't want the Senate agenda. I don't want that. I know the law. Okay, so we don't want any of that. We don't want the laws. Okay, let me see if I can go back. Okay, visit the New York State Assembly. Okay, so let's go here then. Let's go to the New York Senate. Okay, I like this website. This makes me feel like, okay, boom. I like this, but it doesn't tell me, okay, how I can easily get to the representatives as opposed to the Senate or the senators. And we know generally most people don't have a full understanding of the difference between the House of Representatives and senators, and don't have a full understanding of congressional, like the college when they refer to that, the electoral college, districts, all of that stuff. So it's still missing some parts for me, especially what we saw on other sites. But let's go to senators. We got senators and committees. All right. And this is what I was telling you. Thankfully, there is a picture. Okay, there we go. All right. So we do have pictures like that. We have the representatives. I'm not sure what CIP and RFM mean. Remember, there are going to be things that I don't know, because I said in the very first video, I am not seeking to have you believe that I have all knowledge. I don't. I'm going to be learning things through this process, and I'm excited about it. And I'm hoping to inspire you to be equally excited about it. And I get excited about this stuff, okay? All right, so we're going to count. And I know if you're joining me for the first time, you're like, what? This just seems real simple, because we don't have to be high level. A lot of this stuff is common sense. I'm going to break it down for us all. We're all going to have a full understanding. That is my goal, friends. Enlarge our collective and individual understanding on the subject matter. All right, here we go. All right, so we count. 1, 2, 3. We're counting with Democrats this time. Last time we started Republicans because I'm trying not to play favorites, right? Okay. All right, so we got 3 Democrats so far. We roll up. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. You know, New York is large. 39, 40, 41, 42. Okay, so 42 Democrats. All right, so we're going to do quick math real quick here, real quick. All right, so there are four that they list. They list four legislators for each row. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 15 rows of 4, which is 60, 63. So 63 minus 42 of them being Democrat leaves us with what? 21 legislators or senators who are Republican. So we know that that New York is a Democratic majority for the Senate, which is good because the Senate has more power, quote unquote, right? All right. So, and I am very interested. So I'm going to have to dive into this more because I'm doing this in real time with you. I don't want to do too much. Now, please understand, because I don't want anyone to take this and say, okay, well, she's just not effective in planning. No. Those who know me know that I prepare. I plan. You don't get a nickname Queen Get Her Done if you don't prepare and plan. But I wanted this to be authentic. I didn't want to come in as a know-it-all. I wanted us, because everyone thinks that I know it all in just about all types of subject matter. And I do have a very versatile, interdisciplinary academic background. I do. If you saw my resume, you run. You would be impressed, but you'd run away from me. Okay. So this allows for us to be able to really dive into this authentically, right? Not with some preconceived notions, even though some people, yes, you would ascribe preconceived notions to a hypothesis if you're not objectively aligned. I am generally objectively aligned, so my hypothesis is sound, okay? All right. The point I'm making here is that I want to dive into what are these other letters? What is C? What is IP? What is RFM? I don't know what those are. I have no clue. And maybe I know, but I never associated them with that abbreviation. I have no clue. I have no clue what those acronyms are. So I'm going to make a note for myself. We're going to look into those and go over them very quickly in the next session. All right, so now this is all about the Senate. So maybe we go back and maybe it's going to show us, because this is just Senate, only Senate. So then we can validly assume that there must be a space for the House of Representatives. Okay, let's see here. And you would think that they would be in the Assembly. So I'm not really sure why we don't see that. So then I'm going to come out and I'm going to say New York House of Representatives. And there we go. It comes right up. All right. Let's see. This is interesting. So I've not ever seen this. Well, that's .com. We're looking for, when I say .com and I say it with the intonation of concern, I'm saying that because I've been directing and very strongly suggesting otherwise that we only look at those websites that have a .gov. Got it? All right, so this one now says elected representatives. This is from the North Carolina, excuse me, I keep saying North Carolina. The New York State Board of Elections. This is so odd. Okay, let's go here one more time. nyassembly.gov. So what did I go to initially? I went to and I wish, you know what? Hindsight is a beautiful thing, right? And I told you that I'm human. So we went to the New York courts.gov, because I was like, what in the world? This should be easily accessible. All right, so let's go here. Where will we? All right, so we don't need that, but that's going to be valid for the, and I think that's why I did it. It's valid for the statutes as it relates to the tenant matter that I wanted to just quickly bring to your attention. So we're going to leave that link up. We're going to leave this web page up, and then we're going to go on over to this, not the assembly, but the, where are we? That's not it. We were at the Senate. I think I closed the page again. All right, let's go back here. Okay, New York House of Representatives. And it was a .gov that we found. It's amazing that it's not the first. Yeah, that's very interesting. Okay, assembly members. Okay, so it doesn't separate them by House of Representatives. We just have districts. Okay, so let's then try another way. Because you've noticed on the other state websites, it very easily shows you or distinctly shows you, here's the House of Representatives and here are the senators. All right, so, and please understand that there is state senator representation and there's also federal representation, okay? Although it is all effectually federal, okay. All right, so let's go back. And this is one of the things that I want to remove the intimidating factor from, because if you live in a state and they have websites like this, I can see why you're disinterested in politics. So we're going to chop this tree down, but don't go around chopping trees because you know I love the trees. Okay, so that was a bad that was a bad representation. All right, so let's do. We're gonna tackle this. It's not gonna be hard. So let's see. All right, there was another one up here. It was a .com. I don't really trust the .coms. All right, let's go here. Elected representatives of New York State. It is a .gov. All right. This, to me, is very concerning. Very concerning. Yeah, this should be better. This isn't good at all. All right. Okay, so this is not convenient at all, but I am going to try my best to get through it and count. Here we go. So we know that Governor Cuomo handles the governor seat, right? Okay, but we're not focused on that. We're gonna go, and you see what I mean by rep in Congress. So you have representation. It's all holistically federal, but you'll understand further. Okay, those are the senators. So give me a second. I'm gonna do my best, and we're gonna count through this and scroll. If I miss one and you have joined me today, please let me know. Okay, so again, we're starting with Democrats. So that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, Okay, so it looks like 20. So it looks like at least they have organized this this list by House of Representatives first. So there are 20 House of Representatives that are, yeah, because all of this is, these are senators. My goodness. This is a very unique state, but we already knew that as far as the Electoral College. Okay. Member of Assembly. We may have to spend 2 sessions on this. In fact, we are. This is going to be one of those one-off situations where we need to spend 2 sessions because this member of Assembly 22 and 29 and all the way to, what are we at? 47. Oh, goodness. Member of Assembly 89. Goodness. This is very interesting. And although my dad's side of the family is from New York, I know some of you are not going to believe this. You're going to think I'm lying, but it's the truth. I have been to nearly every state in this country, and I have been outside of this country, but I have not ever, I know it, I've not ever been to New York. And there's so many of you that think that I'm from New York. That's just the culture that's rubbing off on me from being around my dad's side of the family from Brooklyn and Nyack, New York. But wow, this is interesting. So there are 150 members of Assembly. And remember, we saw Assembly before. So that's, oh yeah, we're going to spend 2 sessions on this. So we're going to come back to this. I'm going to go ahead and bookmark this because this is interesting. All right. Okay. Wow. I told you this would be eye-opening. But for the House of Representatives particularly, there's 22, it appeared to be out of 24 or 25, we'll go all the way back up, 24 or 25 House of Representatives total, okay? So that means there's a Democratic majority for the House of Representatives, and there's a Democratic majority for the Senate. And we know that generally, if you know anything about New York, especially because Governor Cuomo is pretty popular. So that's a good sign, right? Based on our hypothesis, based on our assumptions. All right, so now let's move to the tenant matter and then we can close out. All right, a lot of you, let me go back, let me stop sharing for just 1 second so that you see my face. All right, oh, up close. A lot of you right now are facing eviction or harassment from your landlords. And this can be, albeit in apartment complexes, corporate apartment complexes, or privately owned apartment complexes, or otherwise in homes that you rent from private owners or homes that you rent from commercial management firms, if you will, okay? All right, because normally even in those situations, there's still a private owner behind the scenes. They've just hired a management company to, you know, handle that direct relationship with the landlord, okay? Okay, so yes, I am a law student. We are all aware of that now, okay? It's not top secret. It's widely known at this point, okay? Whether some people want to still feign that they don't believe I am, that doesn't change the truth. Okay, but why is it important for me to mention this? It's important for me to mention this because I am not yet a licensed attorney, okay? Because I'm not a licensed attorney, I am limited to the information that I can give you without the appearance of practicing law without a license. All right. However, as a community leader, I can be an advocate for you on legal matters. Okay. Because eviction plagues and unlawful eviction particularly plagues communities that are disenfranchised, then that scope of advocacy is right up my lane. So, whereas I cannot stand in front of you or beside you in the courtroom and litigate on your behalf, and I wish I could. Please look at my face. I wish that I could, but I cannot. Because I cannot, and I cannot prepare forms for you. I cannot consult you or accept payment for even my shared information. Instead, what I can do is show you the statutes. I can show you where they're at all day long. I can even read a statute. I can even share the general interpretation or the consensus amongst legal professionals for the interpretation of a particular statute. Now, you can't rely upon it to the extent that you would on a licensed attorney as your fiduciary, but you can rely on me. I think you know you can rely on me in one regard, right? Okay, so as I stated in the beginning, New York is a landlord, or excuse me, a tenant-favored state. North Carolina is a landlord-favored state. What do I mean? It's self-explanatory. Let's go to, there should be a easily accessible chapter on landlord-tenant laws. For North Carolina, of course, that's where I live, so I'm very familiar with it. It's chapter 42. For New York, and maybe just this is what you can do generally is just kind of scroll through, and it should be there. But right now we just see personal property, private housing, finance, public authorities, public buildings, public health, public housing. That's not the same as a rental property. I don't see that. It's not explicitly designated, which just means it doesn't have the exact wording or caption is what it's often called legally, that it has in North Carolina, where it just says Landlord and Tenant Act. So let me just Google it. When all this fails, we can Google. You don't want to rely on Google alone, but it is a good starting point. Okay, so then we're going to go here and we're going to type in New York tenant laws, tenant rights. What's the statute? They have way too many sites off, like there's an AG, I guess that's Attorney General. That makes sense. Well, the Attorney General does have a fiduciary duty to make sure tenants are informed of their rights. So that makes sense. So I won't condemn that. But I want the statutes. The statutes are what prevail. Okay, so it looks like it's under real property law in section 235. So let's go back. It was what, RPP? It was RPP. So I'll look for RPP as the abbreviation or acronym, and there we are. So right here, RPP, real property, and it was 235. Let's make sure it wasn't 230. It wasn't 2000 something or another. Yeah, 235F. And all you do is you notice it gives you the sections. So 1 through 2, 10 through 18, 119 through 123, and it goes on. So when you see 235, it's just like the same, very similar to the same system. Uh-oh, let me make sure. Where am I? Oh, goodness. You didn't see any of that because I hadn't shared. Hold on one second. My bad. It was still on me for a second. I got ahead of myself. My apologies. I'm glad I checked one more time. All right, so this is where I got this from. So I Googled. All I did was Google. You'll see NY tenant rights statute. And then I scrolled down, and when you see this symbol here, the double S's, if you will, it is representative of it. Well, literally, it stands for section, okay, section of law. All right, so that's 235. And then so I came back to let's come out of this really quickly so you can see what I was doing. Remember, we were already on the NY State Legislature site, and that was the one for the court specifically, all right, which is here. We came here, we clicked here on the assembly, got here, clicked on laws, laws of New York. Laws are statutes. That's where you find the sections. And the acronym or the abbreviation RPP, I didn't make up in my mind. It was right here, real property law. That's what it stands for. Came back over to the law website and looked for RPP. And it looks like they do have them in alphabetical order. At least that's the case. I mean, my goodness, they have you going everywhere in New York, huh? But they do have a lot of things going on. All right, still no excuse for concise information for their residents. Still no excuse. All right, so real property law. So we'll click on that. And then I was showing you that we're going to go to 235 very quickly. This is 220 through 238, and boom, we found it. There is where it specifically states landlord and tenant. All right, so let's go there. Let's see. There's a right to sublease or assign. Unless a greater right to assign is conferred by the lease, a tenant renting a residence may not assign his lease without the written consent of the owner, which consent may be unconditionally withheld without cause, provided that the owner shall release the tenant. That's similar to North Carolina. Assigning rights, basically just, oh, I'm going to sublet, right? That's normally written into your leases. But what I wanted to get to is just to show you why law has to be changed for the things that we experience in everyday life to change. So if you want there to be rent control, and this is what this is important for, let me see. Then it's the law on rent control that must be changed. Let me look that up. Rent control, New York statute. I'm going to Google that too. All right, so that's in 220 as well. Let's go back and see if we find that real quick. Action for use. Let me see. It's easier to see it this way. Here we go. 226, notice of rent increase or non-renewal of residential tenancy whenever a landlord intends to offer to renew the tenancy of an occupant in a residential dwelling unit with a rent increase equal to or greater than 5% above the current rent, or the landlord does not intend to renew the tenancy, the landlord shall provide written notice as required in subdivision 2 of this section. If the landlord fails to provide timely notice, the occupant's lawful tenancy shall continue under the existing terms of the tenancy from the date on which the landlord gave actual written notice until the notice period has expired. This does not exist in North Carolina, not to that same effect. Let's see. And then it looks like there is, because of course we know that they do have, let's see, let's go back, because I'm looking for it specifically. I know exactly where it is in the North Carolina law. And with me doing this organically, you can at least see, okay, well, this isn't as hard as I thought it was, because Tigress is working through this in real time. And I think I can do this. It's not as intimidating, okay? Let's just click on this and see if it gives it to me. I'm surprised it's not giving me the statute, because to the best of my knowledge, I understand there to be rent control. Let's go to 16. Rent charges, late fees, receipts, rent increases for regulated apartments, major capital improvements, rent increase. So tenants who are senior citizens or living with a disability and living in rent regulated, of course, they have that that right to against the rent increases. Rent increases for rent control tenants. In the past, landlords could raise rent for rent control tenants up to 7.5% every year. Now a landlord is limited to increasing a rent control tenant's rent by the average of the 5%. The 5 most recent rent guidelines board. Annual rent increases for 1-year leases or 7.5%, whichever is less. Landlords may no longer charge fuel costs to rent controlled tenants, for gas related. That's interesting. And then there's stabilized. So for rent stabilized tenants paying a rent lower than the legal regulated rent, called a preferential rent, the landlord is no longer allowed to revoke it and raise the rent to the higher legal regulated rent. This means that your landlord cannot raise your preferential rent more than the percentage set by the rent guidelines board, plus any charges for the other things that apply. All right, so this is why this is a tenant favored state. So they're actively trying to protect the tenant. Let me show you here in North Carolina. And so if you're having problems with your landlords, seek the counsel of your attorney general if your attorney general for your state is not corrupt. If you have expressed knowledge that they are corrupt, or if you reach out to them and they do not seem helpful, then look for your local legal aid offices and go through the same procedure. Vet them, be mindful of what you share with them, walk with discretion, and then seek those. If they can't help you, or they refuse to help you, or claim that you don't meet income requirements, then look to your community. If you're having problem identifying an agency that is trustworthy in your area, you can contact me and I can help you identify without any issue of or fear of having the appearance of practicing law without a license. And we can help you identify those agencies in your area that can assist you in advocating for your tenant rights, okay? All right, same in North Carolina. All right, now we go to North Carolina, and this is the point that I'm making. All right, so I know the North Carolina website is just NCGS. There's a, of course, the geological survey as well. That's why it can be easily remembered for me, because I'm a scientist, but nonetheless, we go here. So NCGS just stands for North Carolina General Statute. So it normally brings it up, even though the website is NCLEG, which stands for North Carolina Legislature.gov. All right, so we're going to go here. I do appreciate the website here. I do, because you see, you just go right to it. That does not mean that North Carolina is somehow a perfect place to live. We definitely have our issues here, just as they are in all of the states throughout the United States, okay? All right, so we're gonna go straight down to 42 because I told you I already know this. I know it almost too well. And they haven't made any amendments. They haven't repealed anything here lately as it relates to this act that I'm aware of that would be, relevant to what we're all dealing with in the pandemic, okay? So then we're gonna go to rent control because they have a section that is explicit on rent control. And this is my point. Let's read together. Let me move my little video box. Let's read it together really quickly, and then we're going to conclude. No county or city as defined by GS may enact, maintain, or enforce any ordinance or resolution which regulates the amount of rent to be charged for privately owned, single family or multiple unit residential or commercial rental property. This section shall not be construed as prohibiting any county or city or any authority created by a county or city for that purpose from regulating in any way property belonging to that city, county, or authority. Number two, entering into agreements with private persons which regulate the amount of rent charged for subsidized rental properties. Are you following me, friends? Or number three, enacting ordinances or resolutions restricting rent for properties assisted with community development block grant funds. Well, we know those community development block grant funds here in North Carolina to be the implementation of gentrification. Yes. Okay. So basically, if you were following along, then you got it. If you were following along and you were like, but break it down, Tigress. And then if you just couldn't really wrap your head around it, you're like, okay, I hear you, but I'm not getting it all. This is what our problem is. When it's our legislation, that means it's prevailing law. This is state law. And it says, no city ordinance, no county ordinance, no regulation at that level will allow for an exception to this rent control law, except where we, county and city, may want to contract with landlords and developers, commercial developers, for our own benefit. And this is why when they control the community development grant funds, and those who pour into those funds are generally developers who generally have their own agenda of interest, their own personal gain. This is how gentrification occurs. We have this problem right now in our NODA area. We have this problem downtown. We have this problem in our South area as well, the kind of hip part of South Charlotte, if you will. But if this does not change, if this law doesn't change, the things that affect us that relate to this law in our everyday lives will not change. Do you understand? Okay. I won't press the issue because I know that right now some people are really in bad situations, and I really wish that I was already a licensed attorney. I really do. Because this will be the love of what this labor, putting myself through all this process, it will be well worth it when I can stand before tenants who have been taken advantage of and we find secure justice and victory and relief. and remedy. Okay, so I don't want you to feel discouraged if you're in North Carolina. I know some of you have been dealing with rent increases, significant ones, $200 on $1,100 apartments, and that can really make or break a person, especially in this area with the cost of living just seemingly skyrocketing. Again, if you need help in the form of advocacy, I can put you in contact with other agencies that I have lended. I have supported over the years of my living here for the last 6 years. And we can help you in that regard specifically. If you are facing eviction, if they're just bullying you with the rate, the rent increases. So, oh boy, it's a lot. It really, really is a lot. But this is why we must strive to implement a plan, a strategic plan on implementing a more perfect union. And too many, mostly all of our complaints are on matters that can only be changed by legislation that first need come at the congressional or Congress at that level, because our states are often gridlocked by their respective constituencies, meaning the people who pay them or the voters who vote for them, and influence our state legislators to either not change the law or only change it to the benefit of their constituents, who are most commonly individuals who are not on the right side of justice. All right. So I went over 1 hour and 30 minutes because it was necessary. And we're going to cover New York for a second session because this was very interesting. This is exceedingly interesting. And I'm going to get to the bottom of the abbreviations, the acronyms, and we'll find out more. So I really, 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 truly hope that you all are doing well. I hope if you are diagnosed or you test positive for COVID, that you recover well. Please know that it will be an uphill battle. Please know that you need to immediately change your diet. And of course, changing your diet can take time, because it's habits, if you will. But you need to immediately implement a plan to change your diet. I should say it that way. And you need to continue to see your trusted, I express once more, your trusted physicians on a regular basis, because there will likely be future complications to arise. And you need to make sure you have visits with specialists for the systems that COVID affects. So you want to have a cardiologist, you want to have a gastroenterologist, okay? And you want to have an asthma and allergy specialist or allergist, right? Okay. These are very, very important. And if you do not have COVID and maybe you're taking care of your family, I wish you Godspeed. If you are one of our frontline workers, I wish you Godspeed and strength. Make sure you take some time for yourself to rejuvenate so that you are not pouring all of your energy out. You need to love some inwardly, right? So that you can be fit for the long haul, because we still have a significant amount of time to go before we're all in the clear. And as it relates to the vaccine, we will do a separate video on that because there has been some new developments, new vaccines that have been presented for FDA approval. and we'll spend one session on that alone. Okay, so right here at the time to stop, since we're going to do 1 hour and 30 minutes today, I hope that if you did have a chance to join me, I hope that this has been informative for you, and that maybe, you know, even if you were one of those individuals who had a general knowledge of all these things, and that you learned something. And yeah, that's how we do it here. So please join me next week at 4 o'clock next week, definitely 4 o'clock. And again, remember to pour love into those colloquial strong women as well, like myself, because I just need some rest today. And that's why I decided to go ahead and go live earlier, as opposed to breaking up my rest and going live at 4 o'clock. All right. And thank you for the well wishes in advance, and have a wonderful day. I am Tigress Sydney Acute McDaniel, your host of Evolve Weekly. Bye.